had it to here, with people coming in and literally sitting right there and falling asleep, or sitting right there and just scrolling on their phone the entire course, or sitting right there with their beats on. And I've done this a few times over the last 31 years. And I said, if all you're gonna do is come in and scroll on your phone or sleep, don't come. And literally 3/4 of them stopped coming. And all 3 of those classes have a lot of athletes, which really bothers me because I was an athlete all through college. Anyways, all right, so we are picking up, we're finishing Hamlet today. This is Act 5, Scene 1. I believe we left off around line 238. When Hamlet discovers, actually it's just before then, just after then, Hamlet discovers Ophelia's dead. Okay? Laertes jumps into her tomb, jumps into her grave, and then Hamlet says his, what is he whose grief is more than mine? This is I, Hamlet the Dane. He jumps in. Laertes says, the devil take thy soul. Hamlet, no, pray it's not well, because Laertes is trying to choke him. And Hamlet says, I prithee take thy fingers from my throat. This is line 261. For though I am not splenitive and rash, full of spleen, that is the red, black bile and such, though I am not splenitive and rash, yet have I in me something dangerous, which let thy wisdom fear hold off thy hand. Well, what is it that Hamlet has in him that is something dangerous? What's been building in Hamlet since Act 1, since he first saw the ghost? It could be madness. Big debate whether there is any madness in Hamlet. It's that, when he first sees the ghost, he makes that comment, oh, my prophetic soul. That is when even before Hamlet talked to the ghost, we saw Hamlet pushing down the troubles inside, but break my soul, for I must keep my tongue, he says at one point, right? So the king has them separated, and Hamlet says, line 269, I will fight with him upon this theme until my eyelids will no longer wag. What's the theme? Who loved Ophelia more? The queen. Oh, my son, what theme? I loved Ophelia. What did the queen say at the beginning of the funeral procession? Or maybe after Ophelia was placed in the grave, she said, I hoped thou shouldst have been my Hamlet's wife. Hamlet just now says, I loved Ophelia. Notice, he doesn't condition it, he doesn't qualify it, he doesn't add, he doesn't embellish. It's just a simple declarative statement. And yet, Act 3, Scene 1, after to be or not to be, what does he tell her? He first says, I loved you once, and then he says, I loved you not, I loved you not, I loved you not. And in that speech, he also tells her, believe none of us. Us mean men. Why? I'm just reiterating what I suggested there. That when Hamlet is talking to her in that scene, he's trying to be very subtle, I think, in telling her, don't believe anything I'm telling you right now. So when he says, I didn't love you, he did. Exactly. That's why he says, get thee to a nunnery. Why? Because we are bad men. Extrapolate, it does mean all of humanity, but he's talking about men in particular, errant knaves. All right? So he goes on. I loved Ophelia. Now he's going to embellish. 40,000 brothers could not, with all their quantity of love, make up my sum. What wilt thou do for her? Okay, so why can't 40,000 brothers equal Hamlet's amount of love for her?
Because at least he was trying to keep her out of this mess, and they kept pulling her into it.
They who? Be very particular with your speech.
Polonius and Claudius Claudius, Laertes to an extent because he told her and assumed that Hamlet was insincere in his love for her.
Okay, that part's true, but Laertes didn't have anything to do with drawing Ophelia into the plot against Hamlet, like Polonius did, like Claudius did, like Gertrude did. They all knew what they were doing when Polonius said, I'll let her loose on him. Okay? And even, gotta admit, Ophelia knew. Ophelia knew, beginning of Act 3, Scene 1, what she was doing. How do we know? Where's your father? At home in his house, lying through her teeth. She knows he's not at home. She knows he's listening. So, what's another reason why 40,000 brothers' love could not equal the sum of Hamlet's? Hamlet does not have a brotherly love for her. He has a romantic and erotic love for her. He wants to do things with her that no brother should. You know, and there's echoes of the incest between Gertrude and Claudius kind of there. The king, he's mad, Laertes. He doesn't mean angry, he means he's crazy. Why does the king say that? I think that's a way of saying, back up. Take a step back, Laertes. You don't know what Hamlet's going to do. The queen, forbear him. That is, don't hurt him. He doesn't know what he's doing. Hamlet swoons by God's wounds. Show me what you'll do. Come on, Laertes. Prove your love for her. Will you weep? Will you fight? Will you fast? Will you tear thyself? Will you drink up Isel, eat a crocodile? I'll do it. Do you come here to whine? To outface me? That doesn't mean overcome. That means to show more than me. With leaping in her grave, be buried, so will I. And if thou prate of mountains, prate. Oh, throw all those mountains of, that's what he means by prate. Let them throw millions of acres on us, till our ground, singeing his pate against the burning zone, make Asa like a wart. You've got all kinds of glosses down there. Nay, in thou mouth, I'll rant as well. Queen, this is mere madness. Question, is it? Is Hamlet acting here? Or is this a real madness caused by Ophelia's death? Is this a moment of madness instigated by passion? Queen says, thus a while the fit will work on him. Hamlet, hear you, sir. He's ignoring Gertrude and Claudius. Hear you, sir. What is the reason that you use me thus? And then look at his next words. I loved you ever. What does that mean? Some critics, totally asinine in my opinion, want to say, oh, this is some homoerotic. No, it's utter BS. This is Hamlet saying he and Laertes were friends. He and Laertes always got along, which is kind of interesting since Hamlet is highborn, royal, and Laertes isn't. Yes, Laertes is upper class. I loved you ever, but it is no matter. Let Hercules himself do what he may. The cat will mew and dog will have his day. What is Hamlet saying at that point? Oh, the hell with it. It's almost like he's saying, we're done here. But he doesn't mean we're just done here.
We're done as friends.
Even more than that.
We're enemies?
No. What else does Hamlet have to live for? Nothing. Nothing. This is kind of like the embodiment by Hamlet of what he was saying when he talked about, we fat other animals to fat ourselves, and we fat ourselves for what? To feed the maggots. But at least when he said that, there was always Ophelia off in the distance. Now there's no Ophelia off in the distance. Now there's seemingly nothing left for him. Hamlet leaves. Notice, he doesn't leave with Horatio. He doesn't leave with anybody else. He just says the cat will mew and the dog will have his day. And I think that's Hamlet telling everybody, get ready. I'm really going to burst, And that's why the king says, Horatio, go with them. He tells Laertes, strengthen your patience in our last night's speech. Notice this scene does what to Claudius regarding his plotting against Hamlet? Nothing. What does the king not show towards Hamlet here? Compassion. Any kind of compassion, any kind of empathy, any kind of mercy. He's like, okay, now you have real reason, other than your dead father, So, 5-2, Hamlet and Horatio come in. And they talk about what happened on the ship. Hamlet says, groped I to find out them, had my desire, fingered their packet, and a fine withdrew them to mine own room again, making so bold by fears forgetting manners, to unseal their grand commission. So, he snuck into their cabin on the ship. He stole the letters from Claudius, where I found Horatio a royal knavery, an exact command, skip several lines, line 25, my head should be struck off. That was the command Claudius gave to England. Horatio, is it possible? No, the king wouldn't do that. Here's the commission. Read it at more leisure. What does that mean? Here's the commission. Hamlet pulls out the letter from Claudius and gives it to Horatio. Why? Because he replaced that letter. You want to know what I did then? Yes. Okay. He says, I devised a new commission. Wrote it fair. That is, he wrote it very carefully. There are no errors. There are no smudges. And then he sealed it. Hamlet goes on and says, in response to Horatio's, how was this sealed? He says, why, even in that, heaven was ordinate. That is, heaven ordained my actions. How so? I had my father's signet in my purse, and I meant to bring mine in today. It's a ring. It's a ring with an image on it that you use to put in wet wax to seal it. That indicates it has the authority of the one who owns that ring. Well, Hamlet had his father's. That is, it indicates the authority of the king. So he says, I folded it up, I subscribed it, that is, gave it the address, and I put the signet ring on the wax. Horatio. So Guildenstern and Rosencrantz go to it. Death. Hamlet. Why, man, they did make love to this employment. They are not near my conscience. That is, I don't feel any guilt for them. Why? Go back to his final words to Gertrude at the end of Act 4. He says, you know, I'm bound for England. She said, you know, I forgot. And he said, my 2 schoolfellows are going to lead me. I will trust them as adders fanged. And that's when he gives the passage that is often taken entirely out of context. 'Tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own petard. He says, yet I will delve a yard below their minds and hoist them to the moon. They're getting what they asked for, Hamlet is suggesting. Okay? And what that hoist with his own petard, what is he really saying? Those who conspire often have what happened. It's like Wile E. Coyote. I mean, that's what the the Roadrunner cartoons are all about. He's always conspiring against the Roadrunner, and all of his machinations do what? They blow up in his own face. Okay? So he goes on. Their defeat does by their own insinuation grow. What does he mean by insinuation? We often mean that to mean something like you imply an idea. It has an older meaning, and that is by putting themselves in that position. They insinuated themselves into what? The conflict between Claudius and Hamlet. Don't get between a rock and a hard place, because you will get ground down. So, 'tis dangerous when the baser nature comes between the pass and fell incensed points of mighty opposites. The baser nature. Who else does this suggest? Is it only Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? No, Polonius. Got between what? The fell incensed points. That's an allusion, by the way, to what? What is going to happen later on in this act? Points like the tips of the foils between mighty opposites. Horatio, what a king is this? Does it not think thee stand me now upon? He that hath killed my king and whored my mother, popped in between, and this is the first time we hear this in the play, popped in between the election and my hopes. The election of what?
The king.
When did that occur? When did Claudius pop between the election?
Right after Hamlet Sr.'s death, while Hamlet Jr. was still at university.
Possibly when he was still at Wittenberg. Where do we get the possible indication of the popping between the election? Claudius's opening big long speech, where he talks about his brother's death, his marriage to his brother's wife, bringing joy to sorrow and sorrow to joy, in which he says, and you all went along with this. Thanks. That is probably, not saying it definitely is, it is probably an indication of they all also went along with his becoming king. Again, Germanic system. You've got essentially a council of advisors. In the English system, it was called the Veton. All right? Okay? In the Veton would tell an English king or if an English king died, the Veton would be the one to elect the new king. That election, the candidate, the number one candidate, would be that king's oldest son. Okay?
Is this similar to how like the cardinals elect the pope?
Kind of. Okay? But it was kind of a rubber stamp. All right? If the king had an eldest son, that's the person who's going to be king. All right? There's only a few instances where they him and haw about that. And then there's usually some kind of, behind the scenes negotiations, so to speak, okay, to make it happen. The whole idea of political, what? How do I want to put this? Political machinations behind closed doors and smoke-filled rooms. That goes back at least 1,000 years in English tradition. So, Hamlet, for the first time in the play, mentions this. And I think that's probably because, not because it doesn't occur to Shakespeare before that, or because it doesn't occur to Hamlet. It's, when it comes out here, it's kind of like, this is one of those things bubbling in Hamlet's soul. Again, if Hamlet were 16, like several of my intro to lit students thought, it'd be a little more difficult to say, oh, well, he's old enough to be king. But he's 30. He's more than old enough to have taken the responsibilities as king. He that hath killed my king, whored my mother, popped in between the election and my hopes, thrown out his angle for my proper life. That is, he's trying to catch me. Thrown out his angle means fishing for my life. And with such cousinage, is not perfect conscience to quit, is it not, excuse me, perfect conscience to quit him with this arm? That is, would I not be guilt-free to quit? That means to requite him with this arm. And is it not to be damned to let this canker of our nature come in further evil? Now, Shakespeare, in that line, is bringing up the idea of just war. But it's not a war between states, a war between nations. This is what? This is the war between himself and Claudius. How could it be just war? What has he said about Claudius? He describes him to let this canker of our nature come to further evil. What is he implying?
He's a disease. He's so morally corrupt that he is a disease upon the people and the kingdom.
He will rot the kingdom. Hamlet is saying, is it not right to, for the protection of others, to end him? If December 7th, 1941 had never happened, big speculation, would the United States have entered World War II? We already had, with the Lend-Lease Act, by shipping material over to Great Britain. But we had not personally become involved. It's a big debate as to whether we would have become involved or not, because there was a sizable isolationist portion of Congress at the time. Okay? One of the reasons we did, not only because of December 7th, 1941, because that got us involved against Japan, it didn't mean we had to get involved in Europe. The very next day, I believe, we declared war not only against Japan, but also against Hitler. Why? Because this was a great cankerous evil that needed to be stopped. Horatio. Notice, Horatio doesn't answer the question. He's kind of like, it's above my pay grade. It must be shortly known to him from England what is the issue of the business there. That is, he's going to find out what happened. And what he means is, shortly, the king is going to find out that England has killed England, the king, has killed Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Hamlet, it will be short. The interim is mine. What does he mean by the interim?
The space between when he finds out.
The space between now and when he finds out. Hamlet is saying, now is my time to act. In a man's life, no more to say one. That is, a man's life is no more than to say one. He doesn't mean literally the word one. He means the amount of space, the amount of time it takes to say the word. Hamlet is essentially saying our lives are psst. That's it. We don't live long. He says, but I'm sorry, Horatio, very sorry, that to Laertes I forgot myself. I forgot myself. How do you forget yourself?
You're not quite in your right senses?
Bingo. You're just a little bit not, well, let's put it that way. You're a little crazy. For by the image my cause, and we see here, Hamlet, a change starts to occur in him. For by the image of my cause, which is, he hath killed my king, Claudius, killed Hamlet's king and father. For to the image of my cause I see the portraiture of his. Hamlet is saying, by looking inside, as he told Gertrude to do, what does he see? He sees Laertes' pain. Why? Because Laertes has lost a father. He understands the anger coursing through Laertes. I'll court his favors. That is, he will beg forgiveness. That's what that means. But sure, the bravery of his grief did put me into a towering passion. What's meant by towering passion? Do you have, good, you don't have a gloss there.
It's what he means by I forgot myself. He just means that he said things he didn't mean in a fit of frustration and grief.
Towering. Where are the passions located? Down here. It became a towering passion because it rose up within him. It overcame his mind. Okay? They hear noise. Osric comes in. We're going to skip most of the stuff with Osric. Okay? Osric says, Laertes wants to fence with you. Okay? Another lord comes in, and they say, you know, whenever you're ready, Laertes is ready, but, you know, if you need longer, that's fine. Line 199, Hamlet replies, I am constant to my purposes. Constant. That can mean ever-minded, but it also means faithful. That is, I will fulfill my purposes. They follow the king's pleasure. His purposes, whatever the king wants, okay. If his fitness speaks, mine is ready. That is, if Laertes is ready, if the king is ready, I'm ready. Now or whensoever, provided I be so able as now. Okay, everybody's coming down. And the Lord says, line 204, the queen desires you to use some gentle entertainment to Laertes before you fall to play. That is, the queen wants you to make nice with Laertes. The queen wants you to essentially patch things up. She well instructs me. Wise woman. The Lord leaves. Horatio. You gotta love a friend like Horatio. You will lose, my lord. What is he going to lose at? Fencing. Why are they doing a fencing match? Why did Claudius propose a fencing match?
Because Laertes is really good at it.
And Hamlet heard that Frenchman, Lamord, the death, by the way, is what his name means, heard that Frenchman, the death, praise Laertes' fencing skill up one side and down the other, and it, what? It exacerbated Hamlet's envy. because he thinks of himself as a rather good fenceman. And now his best friend, you're going to lose. I don't think so. Since he went into France, I've been in continual practice. I shall win at the odds. That is, I don't have to win outright. Why? Because bets are going to be made. And he's saying, all I got to do is beat the odds. But thou wouldst now think how ill all's here about my heart. That is no matter. What does it mean? All is here. All it is ill here about my heart. There's that scene in Star Wars. They're chasing that little TIE fighter off in the middle of space, and they're like, well, there's got to be a station around here. Some that guy's lost, etc. And it's heading towards that moon, and Luke and Han Solo says, I got a bad feeling about this. Hamlet is saying, okay, notice where it is. It's about his heart. When your heart tells you not to do something, just a little bit of advice here, don't do it. The heart is giving him problems. But don't worry, it is no matter. Nay, good my lord, it is but foolery. It's such a kind of gain giving as would perhaps trouble a woman. I mean, women are weak-hearted, so a woman would go, oh, I shouldn't do this. Notice Horatio. Listen to that. If your mind dislike anything, obey it. He hasn't said his mind, he said his heart. I'll forestall their repair hither. Say you're not fit. Again, good friend saying, don't do it. And Hamlet gives us one of the most important passages, I think, in all of Shakespeare. It is an idea that gets reiterated over and over and over in various Shakespeare plays and sonnets. Not a whit. That is, don't you dare tell them I'm not ready. We defy augury. What's augury?
Predicting the future.
Predicting the future. There is special providence in the fall of a sparrow. How do we know? Because Jesus said so. Are you not worth more than 2 sparrows? Yet my Father knows when a sparrow falls, he says. There is special providence in the fall of a sparrow. That is, God knows every sparrow. If it be now, what's the it? The fall of a sparrow? It literally would refer to that because that's the last noun that was referred to. But the fall of the sparrow means the death of a person in this context. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If I am to die now, then guess what? I won't have to die tomorrow. Or the next day, or a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 30 years from now. If it be not to come, it will be now. So, if it be now, it will not be to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, it will come. What's his point? Death comes to all. Everyone must die. That's not the point. That is part of the point. That's the end point. The point is, the readiness is all. What does he mean?
It's not a matter of when, it's a matter of mindset.
Explain. You're right.
Everyone's going to die, it's just a matter of how you face it. If you walk in knowing you're going to die, then settle yourself up for that.
And how do you do that? It's being prepared for death. When? Every moment. Literally every moment. Why? Because none of us know when we're going to die. I could literally in 5 seconds drop dead of a heart attack. Probably not going to happen because I've got a strong heart. Any one of us could die today. Car accident, some weird freak thing. We don't think it's going to happen. Why? Because it didn't happen yesterday. And it didn't happen the day before that. And we tend to evaluate our lives on the basis of what has happened in the past. And we extrapolate from that to tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. But we all know there is no guarantee of that tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Hamlet's point, Shakespeare's point, is therefore we have to be prepared every moment. The question is, what does that mean to be prepared? He goes on. Since no man of aught he leaves knows, that is, since no man knows when he will die, what is it but to leave betimes? That is, at any moment. Let be. What does let be means? Let it roll. Let what will be, will be. Hamlet, what I think the readiness is all means is you have to make peace with that, okay? And making peace with it means, in one sense, how to be prepared. We're going to find out how to be prepared, or what how to be prepared means, when we see Hamlet's final interaction with Laertes. Final interaction, like literal dying words to each other. Okay? So, we finally get the scene. They all come in. The king puts Laertes' hand into Hamlet's. Why? It's like boxers at the beginning of a match coming out and touching their gloves. And Hamlet speaks. And he gives, I believe this is true, the first insanity defense in human history for reason, not guilty by reason of insanity. Give me your pardon, sir. I have done you wrong. What has Hamlet just done? He's admitted his fault. Okay? He's confessed, in a sense. But pardon it as you are a gentleman. There's an idea here behind the word gentleman that a person of a certain standing, because gentleman does have to do with class, okay, will react when someone essentially, when he says pardon it, what is he saying? What does the pardon mean? Comes from French, pardon, by God. It's asking for forgiveness. So, forgive me as you are a gentleman, because gentlemen are supposed to give, be honorable, give what is asked. And if you ask for forgiveness, the honorable thing is to do that. So, pardon it as you are a gentleman. This presence, meaning all these people here, knows, and you must needs have heard, how I am punished with a sore distraction. Notice how he doesn't say, or what kind of voice is that? I am punished with a sore distraction. That's passive voice. I am the victim of this. He doesn't say, you must have needs heard, or notice yourself, I am sorely distracted. He's being punished. So if he's being punished with the sore distraction, who's doing the punishing? God? Notice that was a question. There was a God intonation at the end. What I have done that might your nature, honor, and exception roughly awake, I here proclaim was madness. Was it Hamlet wronged Laertes? Never Hamlet. If Hamlet from himself be ta'en away, and when he's not himself does wrong Laertes, then Hamlet does it not. Hamlet denies it. Who does it then? Right? Because somebody had to do it. Who does it then? His madness. If it be so, that is, if agree with this logic, Hamlet is of the faction that is wronged. Well, who else is of the faction that is wronged? Laertes. Hamlet's essentially saying, Laertes, I'm with you on this. You were wrong because your father was killed. I have been wronged because my distraction, my madness, which is not me, is the thing that did the killing. His madness is poor Hamlet's enemy. Sir, in this audience, let my disclaiming from a purposed evil free me so far in your most generous thoughts that I've shot my arrow over the house and hurt my brother. What does he mean by calling Laertes his brother? His people. What else? His equal, sorry. Yeah. He also, again, if he's his brother, then he killed his own father in killing Polonius.
Well, he did confess a form of love for Laertes. He was clearly friends with him, and given the religious undertones of the text, it would be more likely Christian brother. He genuinely sees him that way.
Okay. Let my disclaiming from a purposed evil, that is, I never intended to murder your father. That's what he means by that. Okay? Laertes. I am satisfied in nature, whose motive in this case should stir me most to my revenge. In nature means as a son of a murdered father, I am satisfied. You didn't mean to do it. It was accidental. Accidental killing, Old Testament, was not eye for an eye. It did not demand a death in return. Intentional did. But in my terms of honor, I stand aloof. What does he mean by I stand aloof? Not satisfied. My honor must still be assuaged. Why is young Fortinbras marching against Poland, the little spit of land? Because Hamlet says to find great argument in a straw is necessary when honor is at stake. Okay? He still has his honor to defend. And will no reconcilement till by some elder masters of known honor I have a voice and precedent of peace to keep my name ungored. In other words, that will still have to be resolved, kind of like among a council. But till that time I do receive your offered love like love. Okay, what does he mean? Like love. I receive it as love. I take what you're saying, Hamlet, and I accept it in the same way. But then he says, and will not wrong it. True or false? Where's their whole purpose for being here? Right now. To kill Hamlet. How? One of three different ways. Piercing him with the foil, poisoning him with the foil, and if neither of those two work, getting Hamlet to drink from the poisoned chalice. So it's like everything Laertes has just said gets undercut by that. He is being false because he is going to carry through with the plot. Hamlet, I embrace it freely. He says, and will this brother's wager frankly play? That is, like two brothers. What's the problem with that? We've heard references to two brothers throughout the play. And it goes back to the eldest two brothers, Cain and So, Laertes says, come one for me, and he reaches out and he grabs a foil. Hamlet, I'll be your foil, Laertes. Notice, meaning, telling us, in Shakespeare's day, the word foil had its literary use that we use today, okay? And Hamlet explains, in mine ignorance your skill shall, like a star in the darkest night, stick fiery off indeed. Oh, because I'm fat and out of shape and no good, your skill as a fencer will really shine out. You mock me, sir. Hamlet, no, I'm not mocking you. Okay? So, they choose foils. Laertes doesn't like one, he chooses another. Hamlet says, this one I like. Okay? So the king sets glasses of wine on the table so that when they're tired, they can each take a sip. And the king says, I'm going to drink to Hamlet's health, better breath, line 269, and in the cup and union shall he throw richer than that which 4 successive kings. And so he says, and I will throw a union that is a gem. He's going to throw this in the cup. It'll be for Hamlet. The poison, okay? So they fence. Hamlet scores a hit. He hits Laertes with the point. So the fence bends because the one Hamlet is using is baited. It's got a dull tip on it. Hamlet says one, Laertes no. Judgment, Ostrich, a hit, a very palpable hit. Okay? Notice this is being celebrated outside because we hear drum, trumpets, and shot. Shot's probably a cannon shot out on the battlements. Okay? They go again. The king says, stay, give me drink. Hamlet, this pearl is thine. And he puts the pearl in Hamlet's cup. Here's to thy health. Give him the cup. Hamlet, nah, I'm not thirsty yet. Okay? They fence again. Hamlet gets another point. What say you? Yeah, it's a touch. In other words, damn you, Hamlet, you just barely got me. Okay? But I confess it. King, our son shall win. Queen, mom's always speaking the truth, you know. He's fat and scant of breath. Here, Hamlet, take my napkin, rub thy brows. So she hands him her kerchief, and she says, the queen carouses to thy fortune. Hamlet says, good madam, king, Gertrude, do not drink, because she's reaching for the glass, and she says, pardon me. Why? Because she's thirsty. She doesn't know it's been poisoned. And the king, it's the poison cup. It is too late. So now we know Gertrude's going to die. All right? Hamlet says, I'm not going to drink yet. Laertes, my lord, I'll hit him now. King, I don't think so. And yet it is almost against my conscience. Why? And notice it's almost. It's not against his conscience. Why? Father's dead. Sister's dead. He blames Hamlet for Ophelia's death because she wouldn't have gone crazy if it weren't for Polonius dying, though the logic of that is a little suspect because she was kind of going crazy before then. Oh, to have seen what I've seen, to see what I see. When Hamlet's craziness comes out in Act 3, Scene 1, Ophelia leaves that scene rattled. Okay? So, Hamlet, come for the third, Laertes, you do but dally. In other words, you're not trying. Come on, pass with your best violence. They fence. They lose their foils. They fence. Laertes wounds Hamlet. Then in scuffling, they exchange rapiers. And Hamlet wounds Laertes. So now Hamlet's going to die because he's been scratched with the poison. And Laertes is going to die. There's 3 dead already on the stage. the king, part them, they are incensed. What does he mean by incensed? Like hot coals. This went from play to deathly serious. And the queen falls. Horatio, wait, they're both bleeding. How? They shouldn't be bleeding. The tips are supposed to be baited. Laertes, Osric, how is it, Laertes? Why, as a woodcock to mine own spring, Osric. Taking us all the way back to Polonius's first words to Ophelia. Hamlet's vows, attestations of love, and such were springs to catch woodcocks. All he wanted was sex. What else does it mean? Hoist with his own petard. Notice, as a woodcock bird to my own spring, I tried to trap Hamlet, I got trapped instead. I am justly killed with mine own treachery. Hamlet, how's the queen? King, she swoons. No. She's not dead yet, but she's nearly dead, you know. The drink, oh my Hamlet, I'm poisoned. Hamlet, oh villainy, ho, let the door be locked. Treachery, seek it out. Laertes falls, exit. Osric, why? Osric is going to lock the doors to the hall. No one's getting out of here. Treachery, seek it out. And Laertes says, it's here, Hamlet. Now, does he go, it's here, Hamlet, like I just did? Or does he go, it's here, Hamlet, treachery is in the room? Or does he go, it's here, Hamlet, and point to Claudius? Hamlet, thou art slain. No medicine in the world can do thee good. Indeed, there is not half an hour's life. The treacherous instrument is in thy hand, unbaited and envenomed. The foul practice hath turned itself on me. Notice, Shakespeare just wants to beat that horse till it's not just dead, but fleshless. What happens when you plot?
Hoist with your own petard.
The foul practice hath turned itself on me. Here I lie, never to rise again. Thy mother is poisoned. I can no more. That is, I can do nothing more. The king's to blame. The point envenomed, the venom, and he stabs the king. And everybody yells, treason, why? Because Hamlet's just killed the king. He's not dead yet, but, oh, defend me, friends, I am hurt. Hamlet grabs the king, probably by the hair, pulls his head back and waterboards him, with the poison. Hear thou incestuous, murderous, damned Dane. Drink off this potion. Is thy union here? Follow my mother. Okay, he's punning on the union, meaning it's another word for pearl. Is thy union, is thy marriage here? And follow my mother to death. He's not saying follow mom to hell. Laertes, he is justly served. Justly. What's Laertes mean by that? Righteously.
When he says union, could he also be alluding to like the union of Denmark and Norway? And so by like the kingdom also sort of like
Not really, not here at least. That's going to come Hamlet's kind of dying words when he gives his vote to Fortinbras. He's going to say, Fortinbras has my vote. And Hamlet, being the previous dead king's eldest son, that vote carries a lot of weight. Okay? So, he is justly served as a poison tempered by himself. That is, the glass, the union in the cup. Exchange forgiveness with me, noble Hamlet. Mine, notice, and my father's death come not upon thee, nor thine on me. So what has Laertes just done?
Truly pardoned Hamlet of the crime of killing them both.
Christ tells his disciples, those whom you forgive, they are forgiven. Not they will be, they are. If you forgive any man his sin, he says, my Father in heaven will not remember it. What has Laertes just done? Hamlet wiped clean. At least of these. My father's death and mine. Notice, he doesn't say and Ophelia's, because Hamlet isn't guilty of Ophelia's death. Ophelia's not, I don't think. Ophelia's not guilty of Ophelia's death. If anything, it's the willow tree that broke, when she fell. Mine and my father's death come not upon you. Wipe it clean. Nor thine nor your death on me. That's what he's asking from Hamlet. Hamlet, heaven make thee free of it. God, what? Hamlet essentially, and Laertes, never thought about this till just now, essentially does both what Christ does on the cross and what St. Stephen does as he's being stoned. Lay not this sin against them, is what Stephen says, and Christ says, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Hamlet, I follow thee. Where? Death. Then just forgiven each other. They are in a sense in a state of grace, so they will go where when they die? They'll go to, at the very least, purgatory, if you're Catholic, okay? Heaven, if you're Protestant. I am dead, Horatio, and yet he keeps talking. Okay. Wretched queen, adieu. Why does he call her wretched?
She died in a wretched, not necessarily that she's a wretched person, but she died in a wretched state.
She kind of died in a wretched state. Okay. And she was, I'll quibble a little bit, to some extent a wretched person.
Yeah.
She knew what she was doing when she married her dead husband's brother. Okay? You that look pale and tremble at this chance, who is that you? All the lords and courtiers and ladies in waiting and such, as well as audience, that are but mutes or audience to this act. Had I but time, as this fell sergeant, death is strict in his arrest. That is, he's not going to let me talk long. Oh, I could tell you. But let it be. Horatio, I am dead. Thou livest. Report me and my cause aright to the unsatisfied. That is, Horatio, you're going to live. Tell the unsatisfied, that is, those who are outside the locked doors, tell them what? Tell them the truth. Tell them what happened. Horatio, never believe it. Nope, ain't gonna happen. Why? I am more an antique Roman than a Dane. And what he means by that, here's yet some liquor left. Antique Roman. It was Roman practice for, like a centurion who's the head of a legion, for a centurion's right-hand man, if that centurion died and the legion was about to be overrun, that centurion's next level of men would kill themselves. They would rather die with their Lord, and this is Old English, by the way, also, die with their Lord than live either in servitude, slavery to another, or in ignominy, in blame for having outlived their Lord. It's a kind of a stoic attitude, okay? And he starts to drink it, and Hamlet says, nope, and he drinks the cup down. By God, Horatio, what a wounded name, things standing thus unknown shall I leave behind me. Horatio, if you die too, what are the people outside going to think about me? Hamlet's concerned for that idea of reputation or fame. I don't mean glory. Okay? He wants the right the truth to be known. If thou didst ever hold me in thy heart, absent thee from felicity a while. What's felicity? Blessedness, joy. Absent thee from heaven for a while, and in this harsh world draw thy breath in pain to tell my story. Why would he be drawing his breath in pain?
Because he's going to grieve the fact his friend is dead.
Because every time he tells the story, when he takes a breath, reminded of the pain. So Hamlet's telling Horatio to be what?
Strong.
Yeah, there's this motif that runs in literature. Largely Western literature. I can't speak about Eastern literature, Slavic and things like that. You see it in English literature, and it's this idea of the last survivor. You see it in the book of Job. Each one of these horrible things that happens to Job's family and such, one guy survives, and says, I'm the last to tell you, etc. Okay? You see it in the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, you see it in the Wanderer, you see it in Beowulf. You see it in, the quote unquote greatest novel of the 19th century in the United States, Call Me Ishmael. One of the most horrendous novels ever written. Moby Dick. Could never get past the large middle section on the whales. I just never finished it.
That's fascinating.
PhD, in English literature. I had a professor in undergraduate school who was a Melville freak. I mean, her office was covered with all kinds of Melville cartoons from like the New Yorker and New Republic and stuff like that, because they're a bunch of, American lit eggheads. Anyways. We hear Fortinbras is near. He comes from his conquest from Poland. Also, the ambassadors are back from England. I die, Horatio. Third time he says, I die. The potent poison quite o'ercrows my spirit. I cannot live to hear the news from England, but I do prophesy the election lights on Fortinbras. Now, that is sometimes taken to mean, and I said it earlier, that means Hamlet is casting his vote. He's saying Fortinbras will be chosen. I prophesy. All right? And here comes his vote. He has my dying voice. Is Fortinbras Hamlet's age? No, he's younger. Fortinbras was, take that back. He has to be Hamlet's age, if not older. Because Hamlet Sr. killed Fortinbras Sr., and it was on that very same day that the sexton became sexton at the church cemetery, and it was on that same day that Hamlet was born. Never made that connection before. So, the rest is silent. And Hamlet dies. Horatio. Now cracks a noble heart, good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. That is, and let the angels take your soul to heaven. That, by the way, that last line is what Laurence Olivier has on his tombstone. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. Okay? Fortinbras comes in. What the hell is going on? That's what, where is this site? Means. Horatio, what is it you would see if aught of woe or wonder ceased your search? Woe, great sadness, or wonder. I mean, this is going to blow you away. So, Fortinbras, O proud death, line 366. What feast is toward in thine eternal cell, that thou so many princes at a shot so bloodily hast struck? So, Claudius is dead on the dais. Gertrude is slumped down next to him, probably also on the dais. Laertes is dead. Hamlet is dead. So you got 4 bodies right there. Ophelia's been buried. That's number 5. Polonius has died. That's number 6. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are rotting away in England. That's 7 and 8. Seems like there's somebody else. Well, Hamlet Sr., but he dies before the opening of the play. So, the first ambassador comes in and says, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Where should we have our thanks? Who is thanking us for having killed them? Horatio. Not from his mouth, that is Hamlet's, had it the ability of life to thank you. He never gave commandment, talking about Claudius, he never gave commandment for their death, but since so jump upon this bloody question, you from the Polack Wars and you from England are here arrived, give order, notice Horatio's taking command, do what? Give order that these bodies high on a stage be placed to the view. So these bodies, is it all four? And let me speak to the yet unknowing world how these things came about. What's he saying? Take these out onto the balcony, let's say, like of Buckingham Palace. Put them on a dais, kind of, make that dais so it's slightly raised so they can see the bodies. And he says, and I'll explain how they came to be this way. Let me speak to the yet unknowing world, how these things came about. So shall you hear of carnal, bloody, and unnatural acts, of accidental judgments, Polonius's death, casual slaughters, that could also be Polonius's death, because it was rather casual that Hamlet killed him, but more specifically here, or what was attitude's Hamlet? What was Hamlet's attitude towards Rosencrantz and Guildenstern's death?
They got what was coming to him.
It was very casual. He was like, oh, well, sucks to be them. Of deaths put on by cunning and forced cause. And in this upshot, that is, and here's the point, purposes mistook, fallen on the inventors' heads. All this can I truly deliver. Purposes mistook, fallen on the inventors' heads. Springs to catch woodcocks, engineers hoist with their own petard. What is the original? I've never made this connection till just now. That could be totally ludicrous. What is the original history of humanity, so to speak? Mistook purpose. That is, someone does something thinking something's going to arise from it, and just the opposite arises from it.
Eve.
How so?
She ate the apple thinking that she was going to gain the knowledge of God, but then she didn't.
She came
And-
thinking she wouldn't suffer the consequence of
Yeah.
death.
And there wouldn't be death. It will give you what? Knowledge of good and evil. And did he really say you're not gonna die? She thought it was good for those things and instead hoist with her own petard. Okay? Again, I've said more than once, this is Shakespeare's most religious play, but so much of it is buried. It's got to be teased out of the text. I can't help but think that Shakespeare has that in his mind with that. Okay? Fortinbras. Hurry up. I want to hear it. I want to know what's going on. Okay? Call the noblest to the audience. He says, for me, with sorrow, I embrace my fortune. I have some rights of memory in this kingdom, which he now claims. Horatio, yeah, I got to talk about that too. Okay? But let the same be presently performed, that is, lifting up the bodies on high dais so everybody can see, even while men's minds are wild. What does he mean by wild?
Disbelieving.
It could be disbelieving, full of, they're jumbled. They don't know what to think. Okay? Lest more mischance on plots and errors happen. He's saying, we need to get the truth out. What? To quell all of these conspiracy ideas, to quell all the questions. Fortinbras. Let 4 captains bear Hamlet like a soldier to the stage. Why like a soldier? For he was likely, had he been put on, to have proved most royal. Kings were soldiers. And for his passage, the soldier's music and the rite of war speak loudly for him. That is, he will get a military funeral. This would be like he's going to be taken to Arlington and there's going to be a 21-gun salute. Take up the bodies. Why? Such a sight as this becomes the field. Where are they? They're in the great hall of the castle. This shouldn't happen here. But here shows much amiss. Go, bid the soldiers shoot. Okay? Questions? Comments?
This is sort of weird, but like I noticed that we have like these images of like of bombs, like with the poison bomb was hard, and like the cannons. So I'm thinking like, are there any like Shakespeare plays where like someone just pulls out like a pistol, and like obviously at this point it would just be like a muzzle loader, but is there a part where someone fires a gun in Shakespeare?
Yeah, the war, Henry IV, Part 1,
Yeah, like
Hamlet, not Hamlet, Hal asks Falstaff for a weapon, and Falstaff pulls out of his holster a bottle of sack. But Hamlet's asking for a firearm.
Hal is.
Sorry, Hal is. Sorry, Prince Hal. Get to play. Yeah, Hal is, and he pulls that out, and Hal berates him for having the wine with him on the battlefield. Like, you think this is fun and games? You think this is playtime, etc. It's one of the most, in one sense, searing points in that play, because Hal expresses utter disgust with Falstaff. Why? Because men are dying left and right around him. I'm trying to think of, can't think of really.
There's no like duel. Well, obviously we have the fencing duel in Hamlet, but there's no like a pistol duel or like what we would think of as a gunfight. Even though like technically firearms are like contemporaneous with like,
They're contemporaneous with Shakespeare, and I'm trying to think, like Othello. I don't think there are any in Othello. Lear definitely not, because it's set way in the past. See, most of the plays are set somewhat in an idealized kind of past. I mean, nothing in the comedies.
Because like I think in Julius Caesar, there's like a scene where they like allude to a clock. So it's like which implies that like Shakespeare doesn't necessarily know like if clocks are like a modern thing or an ancient thing. So we don't know. Does Shakespeare think firearms are new things? Does he ever allude to them in any?
I can't answer that.
In letters.
I wish I could.
Well,
he doesn't. We don't have any letters.
Oh.
We have nothing. We have almost nothing of Shakespeare's literary output in his own hand. There are a couple of manuscripts of plays where we do have Shakespeare's hand, not his plays. Other plays, Beaumont and Fletcher, that Shakespeare assisted on. That's why you'll see, an accounting of Shakespeare's plays somewhere between 37 and 39. 37 written solely by Shakespeare. There are these two others that I can't remember the titles off the top of my head, that Shakespeare, we're almost positive, had a hand in. One of them, there is a text that has Shakespeare's handwriting, where he's correcting essentially a scene. They're probably not major portions by Shakespeare, but we have none of the sonnets in his own hand. We have none of the 4 long poems in his own hand. We have 6 signatures, and he spells his name 3 different ways.
What?
Yeah, because there's no standardized spelling.
We do have his will.
Wait, you didn't mention this at all when you were talking about the anti-Strat Stratfordians.
Yeah, I
right?
thought I did.
No.
Yeah, he signs his name spells his
That's
name
super
3 different ways.
inconvenient.
Because there's no standardized spelling at this point. It's spelled Shakespeare, S-H-A-K-S-P-E-A-R-E, Shakespeare, S-H-A-K-E-S-P-E-A-R, no E at the end, and Shakes, P-E-R-E.
Is there a standardized pronunciation for his name? Like at the time, like did people just, it probably depended on their accent, didn't it?
Well, their dialect, where they're from. We have his will, and this is one of the most enigmatic things. I thought I mentioned this in that first day. In his will, one thing, he doesn't mention any books. It's one of the most troubling things. Because Shakespeare would have had to have books. We know that. Some of his source material was only available, for example, in French. Some of it was only available in Latin, and some of it was only available in Greek. So he had to have known at least those three, and I think one was available only in Italian, okay? Hadn't been translated by the time Shakespeare used this material, but no references to books. And the oddest thing is in the will, he leaves his second best bed to his wife. It has troubled Shakespeare scholars from the beginning. Why in the world would you leave your second best bed to your wife?
What about the first best bed? Who gets that?
It's not mentioned who gets it. It's
Well, how
thought.
many beds did he even have?
Well, New Place was a big house. It was the largest house in Stratford. Okay, it's gone today. It's thought that based upon anecdotal evidence and other information from that time period, that the second best bed is the marriage bed, because it would be worn from them sleeping in it, and the first bed, the best bed, would be the bed reserved for guests. Not used that often. So, what that means is the bed where we showed our love for each other. Now, that's kind of a romantic idea. It kind of ties in, unless you're one of those who say Shakespeare didn't love Anne because he spent all of his adult life away from her in London, okay, while she was back minding the kids in Stratford and dealing with her father-in-law and stuff like that. Okay, we'll stop there. Obviously, I don't have your papers. I won't have them tomorrow, I can guarantee you that. I will have them by the beginning of next week. I'll let you know when I have them. And like I said in that email yesterday, I'll fold them closed like I did with wherever I put it. This one, I'll fold them closed and put your name on the outside, and I'll set them in the box on my door because this is our last meeting. If you want them. If you don't want them, let me know, and I'll just shred them. Most students, actually, they don't want them.
Yeah.
So, because I'll come back like 2 months later, because I won't be on campus, and they'll still be in my door. I've literally had that happen. Like first time I went on medical leave, I left papers in December, and when I showed up the end of spring semester to get some books to look, there were still papers in the box on my door. All right, that's all. Thank you all. This may end up being my last class ever teaching, so,